Welcome to this video on the Tableau Certified Data Analyst exam. We're going to be talking now about managing published workbooks. And in particular, we're going to cover these topics: creating alerts, creating subscriptions, creating and saving custom views, understanding user roles and permissions, customizing and distributing a published workbook. If I'm going too quickly or too slowly, please adjust the speed of the video as needed using the controls in the bottom right. Now, here is a screenshot of how you can create an alert, a data-driven alert, and also the documentation, and I'll be placing links to all the documentation under the video. Now, here's the same thing, but with subscriptions. On the left, we have the screenshot, and then on the right, we have the documentation. And then next up, we have user roles and permissions, and then user-specific views, and finally, distributing a published workbook. And so now I'm going to go into the demo here. So I'm going to go open up a published Tableau workbook. And if you click on this watch button, you can create an alert. And so this right here, we press this create button. It says this view lacks numeric data. So I'm actually going to need to go back over to Tableau here, change the view. So I need a view that has some sort of a threshold so that if a value goes above a certain threshold. So I'm going to create a new tab here, do sales and order year like this maybe. Let's make it a bar chart. Let's see. I'm going to remove the order year and do subcategory instead. Save this, publish right here. And so now I'll go to the workbook. And now sheet 2. And create my alert like so. But first I've got to select the axis. So this is going to be, we're going to set a threshold for sales. And if we go above it, our alert will start working. So I can say, I want my alert to be that if we go above, say 60,000, right now we're below 60,000. So that's going to be my threshold. And if we go above that value, we're going to send an alert and we're going to send it to me. And so it's going to check every day whether the value is above that, and then send an alert. So I've now created that, and that's it. I can go over here to this action button, remove, edit, change that alert. I'm going to create a subscription. And so this will give me, if I do me, or I could just do all users, but I'll just do myself, subscribing to this view. And so every day I'm going to get a copy of this, and I can choose whether it's going to be an image or a PDF or both. And I'll put here's my alert. And then I can set the schedule 1 day a week at a certain time. And so I'll get a copy of this every week in my inbox. So that will come via email. So that's the second topic here we wanted to discuss, is creating alerts. And next we want to talk about creating a user-specific view. And so for this, we do save custom view. And so right now I don't actually have any filters or anything here, but I could do like a keep only like this. And so now I could do save custom view, and I'll call this just one subcategory. And I can make it a default for me so that when I come to this view, I see this specific filter that I just created, right? So that would be just for me, not for other people when they come to view this worksheet. So that is a user-specific view. Now I'm going to hit the back button and take a look at permissions. I can edit the permissions for the workbook by hitting these 3 dots and then selecting permissions, and for the worksheet by hitting these 3 dots. So if I hit these 3 dots and go to permissions, now I can set the permissions for the workbook. And if you see here, there's the specific granular options, and then there's a template option. So if I choose the template of view, that's going to give view permissions to the all user group. So I can save that. If I change to Explore, that's going to give higher level permissions because explorers can also share, customize, download full data, do web editing, right? They can do more things than a viewer. And then if I move up to Publish, that gives even further access, right? So I can either use the granular options of checking and unchecking, or I can use this template option. I should say though, that this is all conditioned on the user's role. So a viewer role, site role, will not be able to publish views regardless of how you set up the permissions, right? That will be a limiting factor as well. So there are different Tableau license levels, and your ability to do things will be both limited by the permission setup and also by your license level. So a viewer will never be able to publish views, Whereas an Explorer, the standard Explorer, won't be able to publish views, but they can use the web editor. There are different access levels that are able to do different things depending on your site role, but you also can set permissions here to limit that further, and you can make it kind of specific to workbooks. So one person might not be able to delete a given workbook, but they can delete their own workbook. I'm going to close this out now and go to a higher level, the project level. So this is the project level here. And so now we can set permissions as well here. And so this gives a slightly different menu where you have options to set permissions for these different parts, right? So you can set permissions for data sources or for Tableau prep flows or for virtual connections up here. And so you can do that either for myself or for the all users group. And so that's just a little bit about permissions. And so I'm going to close this out now. And then the last topic is on publishing. And so how you can customize when you publish. So if I click here and then select this workbook, when I go to publish, either through the web editor or through Tableau Desktop, I have some options for how the publishing is going to work that I want to discuss. So if I edit like this, and when I go to publish, if I use this drop down, publish as, now I have some options here. I can do show sheets as tabs, which will create a separate tab for each workbook. And so I can choose that option. That's one of the publish options here. And so I can call this my new and publish this with a new name and choose this show sheets as tabs option. And so when I publish here, I'm going to be able to see different tabs in the interface so that I can easily switch between sheets. So here I'm going to go to sheet 1 on my new view, and this one we should see those tabs. So here's the tab, right? And so by choosing that publish option, I have that ability, right? And if we publish through Tableau Desktop, if I go to Publish Workbook here, we see the slightly different options. You know, the option to add a description, to add tags, to select only certain worksheets to include when we publish. So I can just do by state, for example, to set the permissions. In this case, there's only one user, so it's not really interesting to do that, but I guess I could change the permissions for all users and then keep them for myself, right? So setting the permissions here, and then choosing whether to embed the data source in the workbook or publish it separately, and choose whether to show sheets as tabs. We talked about that before, show selections, and include internal files. So those are options when you publish your workbook. And so that is all that I have on this topic. That's all I have on this topic. I'm going to just close it out with a quote from Edward Tufte. He says, "Graphical excellence is that which gives to the viewer the greatest number of ideas in the shortest time with the least ink in the smallest space."